The day my children decided I was a burden was a Tuesday. I remember that detail because Tuesdays were always quiet. The weekend rush was over. The new week's busyness had settled in. It was the day for laundry, for catching up. It was an ordinary day, the kind of day you don't expect your world to change. They didn't say the word burden, not out loud. They used different words, words like concerned and safety and best for everyone. They sat with me in my own sitting room, the one in the little cottage I'd moved to after their father died, the cottage they had helped me find, the cottage they said would be just right for me. My son, Michael, did most of the talking. My daughter, Claire, sat beside him, nodding. Her eyes were on the carpet. She kept twisting her wedding ring around and around her finger, a nervous habit she's had since she was a girl. Mom, Michael said. His voice was so gentle. That was the worst part. It was filled with a kind, careful pity. We've been worried, really worried. The doctor said your last fall was a warning sign. This place, the steps, the loose rug, it's not safe anymore. I wanted to say that the loose rug was the one Claire had bought me last Christmas. I wanted to say the steps were fine. I just got dizzy that one time. But the words felt heavy in my throat. They wouldn't come out. Claire finally looked up. Her eyes were shiny. We found a place, Mom. It's lovely. Sunnyside Gardens. They have nurses on staff all day. No stairs. Meals are provided. You wouldn't have to worry about a thing. Sunnyside Gardens. It sounded like a brand of tomato soup. A cheerful, simple, processed thing. It's not a nursing home, Michael added quickly, seeing my face. It's assisted living. You'd have your own little apartment, your own things. But help is right there if you need it. I looked from one face to the other. My children, the two people I loved most in this world. I searched their faces for a sign that this was a bad dream, but all I saw was relief. They had found the solution. They had solved the problem of me. And in that quiet, sunny Tuesday sitting room, with the clock ticking on the mantel, I felt it. A deep, cold shift inside my heart. I was no longer their mother. I was a situation that needed to be managed. I was the old, fragile thing that was causing them worry. I had become a burden. Music. The piano melody descends into a lower, more somber register. A single, soft cello note begins to underscore the narration. Visual. The hands in the chair tighten slightly. The camera pulls back to reveal an elderly woman, Eleanor, sitting alone. The room is tidy, full of photos. The image blurs slightly at the edges, then dissolves into an older, sun-drenched photograph of a young family in a garden. My name is Eleanor. For 62 years, I was a wife to a wonderful man named Arthur. For 58 of those years, I was a mother. Arthur was my anchor. He was a quiet man, a teacher. He loved history and bad puns and his rose bushes. We built a life in a noisy, happy house full of scraped knees, baking smells, and homework spread across the kitchen table. We didn't have much money, but we had an abundance of time for each other. Time to listen. Time to just be. Michael was our first. He came into the world serious with a little frown. He was our thinker. He took things apart to see how they worked. He planned his life in neat, logical steps. School, university, a good job, a family. He followed that plan perfectly. He is an architect now. He builds structures that are sound, that are safe, that will last. I think he always wanted to build a safe life for all of us, too. Claire arrived 3 years later, a burst of sunshine and drama. Where Michael was calm, Claire felt everything 10 times bigger. A lost toy was a tragedy. A good grade was a triumph. She was all heart, my Claire. She became a teacher, like her father. She feels responsible for everyone, for fixing every sadness she sees. They were the rhythm of my life. Their laughter, their arguments, their dreams. I was the background music to their growing up. I was the one who made the sandwiches, who bandaged the cuts, who stayed up late listening to their teenage heartbreaks. Arthur and I were a team. He was the steady ground. I was the warm blanket. The years, as they do, flew by. They left for university. The house grew quieter. Arthur and I would sit on the porch in the evenings and talk about them. We were proud. We missed the noise, but we were proud. We had our own rhythm again, just the two of us. Then Arthur got sick. It was a slow, cruel thief of a disease. It stole his memory, then his words, then finally his gentle smile. For 5 long years, I cared for him. I became his world, and he became mine. The children helped, of course. They visited, they called, but they had their own families, their own careers spreading out like busy branches. The day to day weight, the quiet grief of losing him piece by piece, that was mine to carry. When he passed, the silence wasn't just an absence of sound, it was a presence. It filled the house. It sat in his chair at the table. It woke me up in the night. That's when the children stepped in, full of love and concern. The house is too much, Mom, Michael said. The garden, the upkeep. You'll be lonely here. We found you a perfect cottage, Claire said, her voice bright with forced cheer. It's near me. 1 floor, a little garden. You can start fresh. They were so kind, so practical. They packed up my life from the family home. They sorted through Arthur's clothes, his books. They handled everything with such efficiency, it felt like a rescue. At the time, I was so lost in my grief that I let them rescue me. I was grateful. I moved into the pretty little cottage. It was easy to manage. It was safe. And slowly, without me even noticing, I began to shrink my life to fit it. Music. The cello becomes slightly more prominent, weaving a sad lyrical line around the piano. Visual. The family photo dissolves into a montage, a hand tending roses, a dinner table set for 4, then for 2, then for 1. Finally, a slow pan across the neat, sparse living room of the cottage. At first, the cottage felt like a new beginning, a simpler chapter. I planted some flowers. I arranged my photos. Michael and Claire visited often. They would bring the grandchildren. There would be noise and laughter for a few hours, and then they would leave, and the silence would return deeper than before. I began to notice the pattern of their care. It was scheduled. Claire came every Wednesday after school. She would bring groceries, put them away quickly, ask a list of questions. How are you feeling? Did you take your pills? Do you need anything from the shops? She would stay for exactly 1 cup of tea, then rush off to her next task. Michael came every other Sunday. He would do a safety check. He tested the smoke alarms. He tightened handles on cabinets. He looked for trip hazards. He was fixing the structure just like he did with his buildings. One Sunday, he installed a grab bar in my shower. Just to be safe, Mom, he said, drilling into the tiles. I appreciated it. Truly, I did. But I started to feel like a very old, very delicate house they were both trying to maintain. They were worried about the foundation, the plumbing, the roof. They weren't visiting the person who lived inside. My world got smaller. I stopped driving at night, then in the rain, then all together after a small scare at a roundabout. The supermarket felt overwhelming. I started ordering groceries online. The delivery man was often the only person I'd speak to for days. I tried to stay busy. I joined a weekly knitting circle at the library. But the other women talked about their children coming over for dinner, about babysitting their grandchildren. I'd talk about my Wednesday visit from Claire or Michael's Sunday safety check. The difference felt so wide. Their families included them. Mine was checking on me. One Wednesday, Claire was particularly rushed. Her son had a football game. She was almost out the door when I said, I finished that book you gave me, the historical one. It made me think of your father. He loved that period. She paused, her hand on the doorknob. That's nice, Mom. I'm glad you liked it. She gave me a quick smile, but her eyes were already out in the street, in her car, at the game. I was thinking, I ventured, my voice too hopeful. Maybe next week, instead of tea, we could go to that little cafe for a slice of cake? Her face clouded with gentle regret. Oh, Mom, midweek is so hectic. Maybe on a weekend? I'll have to check the calendar. She blew me a kiss. Love you. Take your blood pressure pill. And she was gone. The conversation about the book, about her father, about cake, it just hung in the empty air for a moment before fading away. The loneliness was a physical thing, a hollow ache in my chest. It wasn't that they didn't love me, I knew they did. But their love had become a series of tasks, a checklist, Visit mom, check pills, buy groceries, test alarms. Loving me was another item on their very long to do lists. Then I had the fall. It was so silly. I was reaching for a teacup on a high shelf. I lost my balance for just a second and sat down hard on the floor. I wasn't hurt, just startled and embarrassed. I managed to get up. I was fine, but I made the mistake of mentioning it to Michael on his next visit. Just in passing. A funny story about my clumsiness. He didn't think it was funny. His face went still and serious. You fell? Mom, why didn't you call? Did you hit your head? We need to get you a medical alert pendant. This is exactly what I was worried about. He saw it as proof. Proof that the structure was failing, that his safety measures weren't enough. After that, the visits changed. The questions became more pointed. Are you sure you're eating enough? You look thin. You seem tired, Mom. Are you sleeping? Let me see your pill box. I want to make sure you're on track. Their concern, which once felt like love, now felt like inspection. Every little forgetfulness, where I put my reading glasses, a missed appointment, became evidence in a case they were building. A case I didn't even know was being tried. I began to hide things. I didn't mention the dizzy spell I had after gardening. I made sure the house was spotless before they came, so they wouldn't worry about me not keeping up. I pretended to be more cheerful, more capable than I felt. I was building a performance of being just fine to protect myself from their worry. And from the solution, I could now feel hovering, unspoken, in the air between us. I was laying the groundwork for my own verdict. Music. The piano and cello become more dissonant, the rhythm slightly uneven, creating a sense of building anxiety. Visual. Shots of Eleanor's daily life, now seeming lonely and monitored. A pillbox on a counter, a calendar with only 2 weekly entries marked, C and M, her face watching a car pull away from the curb. The Tuesday meeting was arranged with a casualness that was not casual at all. Claire called on Monday. Michael and I thought we'd both pop over tomorrow afternoon, Mom. Around 3? We just want to chat about some things. Chat about what? I asked, my heart giving a little skip. Oh, just some options. Some ideas we have to make things easier. Easier for who? I thought, but I didn't say it. I just said, all right, darling, I'll put the kettle on. They arrived together, which was unusual. Michael carried a sleek tablet computer. Claire had a folder. They both kissed my cheek. Their smiles were tight. We sat in the sitting room, the same room where we'd spent so many happy, ordinary hours. Now it felt like a boardroom. I poured the tea. My hands were steady, but inside I was trembling. For a few minutes, we made small talk. The weather, the grandchildren. It felt like the quiet before a storm. Then Michael put down his cup and leaned forward. Mom, he began in that gentle, logical voice. We need to talk about the future. Your well-being is our top priority. And so it began. The loving, careful dismantling of my life. They showed me pictures on the tablet. Sunnyside gardens, smiling residents in a bright activity room, a clean, sterile-looking bedroom, a dining hall. Look, Mom, Claire said, her finger tapping the screen. They have painting classes and a choir. You used to love to sing. I looked at the pictures. The people smiling in them had a blankness in their eyes. They were smiling because someone had told them to smile for the brochure. Michael took over, talking about specifications. 24-hour staffing, emergency call systems in every room, no meal preparation required, medication management. The words washed over me. Management, systems, required. They were talking about a very comfortable, very kind prison. It's not a nursing home, Claire said again, reaching for my hand. I let her take it, but my own hand felt limp. It's a community. You'd have friends. You wouldn't be alone. I'm not alone now, I said quietly. I have you. There was a painful silence. Michael and Claire exchanged a look. But we can't be here all the time, Mom, Michael said softly. What if you fall again? What if you have a medical episode in the middle of the night? We lie awake worrying about you. They were lying awake. So the solution was to move me to a place where someone paid to lie awake worrying about me so they could sleep. I felt a cold clarity cut through my fear. This is about your sleep, I said, my voice surprisingly calm. Not my safety. Claire looked hurt. Mom, that's not fair. We love you. We want what's best. Do you? I asked, looking at each of them. Or do you want what's tidiest? What solves the problem of your worry? You are not a problem, Mom, Michael said, his voice straining. But your situation is becoming a concern. This house, your isolation, your health, it's a set of risks. We need to mitigate those risks. There it was, the language of his profession. I was a set of risks, a liability. I don't want to go, I said, and the words were a simple, plain truth. You wouldn't be going tomorrow, Claire said as if that was the issue. There's a waiting list. We could put down a deposit. It would just be there, as an option. An option you have already chosen, I replied. The room was silent again. The clock ticked. The truth was out. They had discussed it, decided it, planned it. All without me. This chat was not to ask my opinion. It was to inform me of my future. I looked at my children. I saw the love in their faces, tangled up with guilt and frustration and exhaustion. I saw that to them, this was an act of love, the ultimate act of care, taking the worry away. But all I felt was a profound erasure. They were writing the last chapter of my story for me, and it was set in a place called Sunnyside Gardens. A deep, quiet strength rose up in me. It came from a place older than fear. It came from being a mother, from a lifetime of making decisions for this family. I put my cup down on the saucer. It made a small, definite click. No, I said. Mom, please be reasonable, Michael started. I am being reasonable, I said. My voice was low, but it filled the quiet room. You are asking me to leave my home because you are afraid. I understand your fear. I am afraid too. I am afraid of falling. I am afraid of being alone. But I am more afraid of disappearing into a place where I am a room number, a care plan. That's not how it would be, Claire cried, tears finally spilling over. It is how it feels, I said. I stood up. I felt tall. I will not go. If you are forcing this choice on me, then you are not choosing my safety. You are choosing your own peace of mind, and there is a difference. I walked to the window and looked out at my small, messy, beloved garden. My back was to them. I heard them shift uncomfortably behind me. I thinned. The silence after they left was different. It wasn't the lonely silence I was used to. It was a charged silence, a silence I had chosen. For 2 days, no one called. No one came. It was a test. They were waiting for me to break, to call them, to admit I was wrong and scared. Part of me wanted to. The old, tired part that wanted to be looked after. But the new, stubborn part held firm. On the third day, there was a knock. It was my granddaughter, Lily, Claire's daughter. She was 16, all long limbs and fierce eyes. She held out a box. Mom sent you these. She's really upset, Grandma. It was a box of my favorite biscuits, a peace offering sent with a messenger. Thank you, Lily, I said. Would you like to come in? She nodded and followed me inside. She looked around the cottage as if seeing it for the first time. They want to send you away, she stated bluntly. They think it's for the best, I said, putting the kettle on. It's stupid, Lily said, her teenage loyalty flaring. This is your home. You have your garden, your stuff. That other place? It's for old people. I almost smiled. I am old, Lily. You're not that kind of old, she said, as if it were the highest compliment. You're just Grandma. Her words were a bomb. She saw me. Just me. She stayed for an hour. We didn't talk about Sunnyside. We talked about her school, her terrible history teacher, the boy she liked. It was the most normal, wonderful hour I'd had in months. Her visit was a crack in the wall, but the wall was still there. A week later, Michael came alone. He didn't bring his tablet. He looked exhausted. Can we talk, Mom? Really talk? I let him in. We sat in the same chairs. The memory of our last talk hung between us. Why won't you let us help you? He asked, his voice raw. Why won't you let us take care of you? I thought carefully before answering. Michael, do you remember when you were 10 and you built that enormous model rocket in the garage? He looked confused but nodded. Yeah, it took months. And the day you were going to launch it, you were so excited, but you were also scared. What if it didn't work? What if it crashed? You wanted me or your dad to launch it for you. A faint smile touched his lips. I remember. And what did we do? He was quiet for a moment. You you handed me the controller. You said, "It's your rocket. You have to press the button." That's right, I said softly. Because taking the risk, being brave even when you're scared, that was part of the experience. It was your experience. We couldn't take that from you, even to protect you from disappointment. I leaned forward. This is my life, Michael. This is my last chapter. Sunnyside might be safer. It might be easier for you, but it is not my choice. You are trying to take the controller out of my hands. You are trying to launch me into a life I don't want because you're afraid my life might crash. Tears filled his eyes. My strong, logical son. I am afraid, he whispered. I'm afraid of getting the phone call. I'm afraid of failing you, of not being there. Oh, my boy, I said, my own eyes stinging. You cannot stop that phone call from coming one day. All you can do is be with me until it does. And failing me would not be letting me fall. Failing me would be sending me away to stop yourself from being afraid. It was as if a dam broke. He put his head in his hands and cried. Deep, shaking sobs he must have been holding back for years. I went to him. I held him as I had when he was small. I rocked him gently. I'm so sorry, Mom. He choked out. I just wanted to fix it. I know, I whispered. I know you did. That was the real turning point. Not my no, but this moment of shared, honest fear. Michael talked to Claire. It wasn't an easy conversation, but he told her what I'd said about the rocket, about the controller. A few days later, they both came over, without folders or tablets. They came with a pizza and my grandchildren. The visit was awkward at first, but it was real. We ate, we talked. We didn't mention options. After that, we started again, from a new place. We made a new plan together. A messy, human plan. We agreed on some changes. I got a medical alert pendant that I actually agreed to wear. A lovely woman named Maria from a local service comes twice a week for 2 hours. She doesn't care for me. She helps. She does the heavy cleaning. She sometimes drives me to the library. She is a helper, not a keeper. Michael still does his safety checks, but now he asks first. Mom, is it okay if I look at the railing on the porch? Claire still visits on Wednesdays, but sometimes we just sit. Sometimes we go to the cafe for cake. They call me more often just to talk. Not to check, to chat. I am not a burden they carry. I am their mother, walking a path that is growing narrower, and they are walking beside me. Not in front, dragging me, not behind, pushing me, beside me. It is not perfect. So here I am, in my cottage, with my garden that is a little wild because I can't weed as well as I used to, with my photos of Arthur, with the quiet which I have made a sort of peace with. The brochure for Sunnyside Gardens is long gone. Sometimes on my very hardest days I think about it. The ease of it. The lack of worry. But then I look at my books. My chair by the window where the light falls just so, the rosemary plant from my old garden that somehow survived the move. And I know I made the right choice. The day my children decided I was a burden was the most painful day of my life. But it was also a gift. It forced us to see each other clearly. It forced us to stop the polite pretense and speak the hard, true words. They saw an old woman becoming a problem to be solved. I saw my children trying to love me from a place of fear, not presence. We were all wrong, and we were all right. My lesson is this: we are so afraid of the mess of aging, of decline, of dependence. We want to clean it up, organize it, make it safe and quiet. We want to put it in a nice room with a call button. But life is not meant to be completely safe. Love is not meant to be a management plan. To my children and to anyone listening who might be on either side of this story, do not let fear make the decisions. Talk. Really talk. Listen. The deepest love is not found in the perfect solution. It is found in the messy, shared journey. It is found in handing the controller back, even when you are terrified of what might happen when they press the button. My story isn't over. It is quieter now. It has more pauses. But it is still my story. I am still the one turning the pages. And for now, that is enough. Music. The final melody resolves into a warm, major chord. It holds, then gently fades out over the last image. Visual. A slow close-up on Eleanor's face. She is looking out her window, a soft, contemplative smile on her lips. She is not simply happy. She is at peace. The camera pulls back, showing her in her chair, in her room, in her life. The screen slowly fades to black.